All right, let's dive in here. You've sent over a whole bunch of discussions and news about open source AI, and, well, one name keeps popping up, DeepSeek R1.
Yeah, it's certainly generating some buzz.
People are comparing it to OpenAI's models, digging into how it was built. It's like the AI world got a brand new toy and everyone wants to see what it can do.
Potentially a very powerful toy.
Exactly. So today, let's try to cut through the hype. What is DeepSeek R1? Why is it such a big deal? And what does it all mean for the future of AI?
A great set of questions.
Let's start with the basics. DeepSeek R1, this OpenAI challenger. Break it down for us.
Well, it's an open source AI model. The focus is on reasoning. It was launched by a Chinese company called, fittingly, DeepSeek.
And the buzz is all about its performance, right?
Yes, that's right. Multiple sources are claiming it's matching or even beating OpenAI's O1 model on things like math problems, coding tasks, even general reasoning challenges, which is significant because O1 is a powerful model, but it's one you have to pay to use.
Okay, so we've got a potentially better model that's also free to use. That's already pretty interesting. But there's more, right?
Oh, there's more. Here's the real kicker. DeepSeek R1 is released under the MIT license, meaning anyone can use it, modify it, even build commercial products with it.
So not just free to use, but free to tinker with and build upon. Huh. No wonder the AI community is buzzing about this.
It really has the potential to change the entire playing field.
All right, so we know it's powerful, it's open, but how does it actually work? What's under the hood of DeepSeek R1?
This is where it gets really interesting. DeepSeek trained R1 using a method that, on the surface at least, seems pretty straightforward. It relies heavily on something called reinforcement learning, or RL for short, and something they call guided unsloth training.
Guided unsloth training. Okay, love the name. But seriously, what does that even mean?
Well, essentially, it's a way of training the AI to be more efficient, more focused in its learning process. And what's really fascinating is that R1 doesn't rely on those ultra-complex techniques many experts were expecting.
Like what kind of techniques?
Things like test time search or a step-by-step verifier. These are methods that essentially try to make the AI double-check its work at every single stage. But R1, it doesn't need those.
So it's achieving this high performance with a simpler approach.
Exactly. It uses a technique called Group Relative Policy Optimization, or GRPO for short, which is similar to another method called Proximal Policy Optimization, or PPO, but without needing something called a value function. Don't worry too much about the technical details. The point is it's a more streamlined approach.
And the simplicity, it's throwing some experts for a loop, right? They were expecting something much more complex.
Absolutely. It really challenges this assumption that you need layers upon layers of complexity to achieve this level of performance in AI R1, suggests there might be a more elegant path forward.
And you mentioned DeepSeek R1 isn't alone, right? There's this whole open source AI movement going on. It seems like there's an explosion of new models popping up all the time.
You're absolutely right. Alongside DeepSeek R1, we're seeing models like Mini CPMO 2.6, RWK-V7, and Kimi K1.5. Each one is kind of pushing the boundaries in different ways. It's like someone opened the floodgates.
And this brings us to something I found really interesting. One user claimed that a distilled version of DeepSeek R1, running on a smaller model called Qwen 1.5b, was actually outperforming some of the big names out there. GPT-4o, even Claude 3.5 Sonnet, on certain math benchmarks.
That's right. That's a tiny model achieving some serious results.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to the potential of these open source models.
It's not just about having more choices. It's about putting powerful AI tools in the hands of more people, individual developers, researchers, even just hobbyists. It feels pretty revolutionary.
It's a real democratizing force in AI development, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But it also raises some big questions about the future of where AI is going, what this means for everyone.
Okay, so this is where we really start to dive deep, right? What are the implications of all this? This explosion of open source models potentially challenging the status quo. Where do we even begin to unpack all of this?
Well, a good place to start is to look at how these models are actually being used in the real world. It's not just theoretical anymore.
You mean people are actually building real things with these open source models?
Oh, absolutely. We're
Yeah.
seeing DeepSeek R1 popping up in tools like Aider, LM Studio, OpenRouter. These are platforms that let you use AI for all sorts of things, generating code, building chatbots, getting creative with video content, you name it.
So it's not just about academic benchmarks, it's about people using these tools to solve real problems, to build, to create.
Exactly. And we even saw one user talking about how they were running R1 locally right on their own computer to analyze huge log files, something that would have been unthinkable for most people just a few years ago.
That's amazing. It really highlights how open source is changing the game. And I have to admit, seeing this kind of activity is pretty exciting. It feels like we're at the beginning of a major shift in how AI is developed and used.
There's a definite sense of momentum, of possibility. But of course, with any new technology, there are also challenges and potential downsides to consider.
Okay, so let's get real here. What are some of the concerns people are raising about this open source AI boom? Because it can't all be sunshine and roses, right?
You're right, there are definitely some valid concerns, and one of the biggest is the question of security. When you have powerful AI models freely available, how do you make sure they're not going to be misused?
That's a big one. I can imagine all sorts of worries. People creating harmful content, deep fakes, even malicious applications.
Those are just the things we can anticipate. With a technology this powerful and this fast-moving, there's always the potential for things we haven't even thought of yet.
Like opening Pandora's box. You never know what might fly out.
A rather apt analogy, I'd say. It underscores the need for proactive measures to try and mitigate these risks, and that's exactly the kind of conversation we're seeing in the material you sent over.
Okay, so let's dive into that. What are some of the solutions and approaches people are discussing? Because it sounds like we need to tread carefully here.
Absolutely. And a key part of that is understanding the different perspectives and approaches to this complex issue. So let's unpack some of those, shall we?
Well, one approach that's gaining a lot of traction is it's this idea of building safety mechanisms directly into these open source models.
So like safeguards baked right into the code.
Exactly. Think of it like content filters, the kind that can detect and flag any outputs that might be harmful, or systems that help identify and mitigate biases,
Yeah.
within the models themselves.
Kind of like a safety net built right in.
Precisely. But
Yeah.
it's not a one-time fix. These things, they need to be constantly evolving, adapting as the technology advances, and as we learn more about the potential risks, right?
It's like a constant game of cat and mouse then.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
But it's a game we absolutely need to be playing. And alongside those technical safeguards, there's also this growing emphasis on, fostering a strong sense of community responsibility.
What does that look like? In practice, I mean. It's about establishing some clear ethical guidelines for developers and users, promoting responsible use and encouraging, open communication about any potential vulnerabilities. Because the open source community is all about collaboration, and that extends to addressing these challenges head on.
So it's a combination of technical solutions and a shared sense of responsibility. It sounds like we need a multi-pronged approach to navigate this new landscape.
Absolutely. And it's a conversation that's just beginning, really. We're still in the early stages of figuring out the best way to balance that openness and accessibility of these models with the need for, responsible development and use.
It's like we're trying to chart a course through uncharted territory.
A very apt analogy, I'd say. But amidst all the unknowns, one thing's becoming clear. This open source AI movement has the potential to reshape the entire field, and its implications extend far beyond just the tech world.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. We've talked about the nuts and bolts of DeepSeek R1, the open source landscape, and the security concerns. What are the bigger picture implications? What does this all mean for, the future of AI and its role in society as a whole?
Well, one of the most profound implications is this potential for increased accessibility and affordability of AI technology. With models like DeepSeek R1 being freely available, the barriers to entry for AI development are significantly lower than ever before.
So it's not just the domain of these big tech companies anymore.
Exactly. Individuals, startups, researchers, even students, they can now access and experiment with powerful AI tools that were previously, completely out of reach. This has the potential to democratize the field in a truly transformative way.
It's like opening up this whole new world of possibilities.
And with that comes the potential for greater diversity in AI development. When you have more people from different backgrounds and perspectives able to contribute, we're likely to see a wider range of applications and solutions, addressing a broader spectrum of needs and challenges.
It's not just about who builds the technology, but whose needs and perspectives are being considered in the process.
Precisely. And that brings us to another crucial aspect, the impact on the pace of innovation. The open source model really encourages collaboration and rapid iteration. When you have thousands of minds working on a problem, sharing ideas, building on each other's work, progress can happen at an astonishing speed.
It's like a collective brain, constantly learning and evolving.
That's a great way to put it. And this rapid pace of innovation can lead to breakthroughs in all sorts of fields, from medicine and scientific research to education and the creative arts.
It's almost like we've unleashed this wave of creativity and we're just starting to see the ripple effects.
And amidst all this excitement and potential, there's also a sense of caution, right? a recognition that we need to be mindful of the potential pitfalls as we navigate this new landscape. It's about striking a balance between fostering innovation and ensuring responsible development.
We've already talked about the security concerns, but are there any other potential downsides we need to be aware of?
One concern that often comes up is this potential for fragmentation. With so many different open source models and projects popping up, there's a risk of the field becoming fragmented, making it difficult to standardize and ensure that everything can work together, you know?
So, like a Tower of Babel situation, where everyone's speaking different language.
In a sense, yes. It's crucial to have open standards and frameworks that allow these different models to communicate and work together seamlessly. Otherwise, we risk creating these silos that actually hinder collaboration and progress.
And that brings us to another important question. How do we ensure the long-term sustainability of this whole open source AI ecosystem? Because developing and maintaining these models, it takes resources, expertise, and ongoing support, right?
That's right. And it's a challenge that the open source community is actively working on, figuring out. We're seeing various models emerge, from community-driven initiatives and nonprofit organizations to corporate sponsorship and hybrid approaches.
So it's a bit of a patchwork quilt then, with different players contributing in different ways.
Exactly. And finding the right balance, that's going to be crucial to ensure that this open source AI movement can thrive and continue to push those boundaries of what's possible. It's an exciting time to be involved in this field, that's for sure.
It really sounds like it. And speaking of exciting, we haven't even touched on one of the most intriguing aspects of all this. The potential for these open source models to actually challenge how we think about AI development in the first place.
Yes. That's where things get really interesting. You see, the success of models like DeepSeek R1, especially that distilled version running on a relatively small model, it raises some fundamental questions about the direction of AI research.
You're talking about that user who found that smaller, more efficient model was actually outperforming some of the giants in certain areas.
Precisely. It challenges this prevailing notion that bigger is always better when it comes to AI. For years, the focus has been on building ever larger, more complex models, requiring massive computational resources and data sets,
It's been an arms race of sorts.
Exactly. But now we're seeing that smaller, more focused models can achieve remarkable results, especially when they're combined with, clever training techniques and optimization strategies.
So it's not just about brute force anymore. It's about finesse, efficiency, finding those elegant solutions.
Precisely. And this shift in thinking, it has the potential to open up a whole new era of AI development. One that's more accessible, more sustainable, and perhaps even more innovative. It's like we're realizing there might be a smarter path forward. One that doesn't rely on just throwing more computing power at the problem.
It's a paradigm shift, a fundamental rethinking of the very foundations of AI.
And it's happening right now before our eyes. This open source AI movement, it's not just about creating new tools, it's about challenging those assumptions, exploring new possibilities, and ultimately reshaping the future of this incredible technology.
This is where it gets really mind-blowing. We're not just talking about incremental advancements. We're talking about a potential revolution in the way we approach AI.
It's a revolution that's being fueled by collaboration, by a shared passion for exploration and discovery. And it's a revolution that has the potential to benefit all of humanity,
It's inspiring, to say the least.
Yeah.
But amidst all this excitement, it's important to remember that we're still dealing with a very powerful and potentially disruptive technology. And as with any powerful tool, there's always the potential for misuse.
That's a crucial point. While we celebrate the incredible potential of open source AI, we also need to acknowledge those very real risks and challenges that come with it.
So it's a delicate balancing act. Fostering innovation while mitigating risks, promoting accessibility while ensuring responsibility. Sounds like a tall order.
It is, but it's a challenge that we as a society must rise to meet. The future of AI is being shaped right now, and it's up to all of us to ensure that it's a future that benefits all of humanity.
It's a call to action, a reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping this technology and its impact on our world.
Exactly. And as we, continue to delve deeper into this world of open source AI, it's important to remember that this isn't just a technological journey, it's a human one. A journey that requires careful consideration, thoughtful dialogue, and a shared commitment to building a future where AI truly serves as a force for good. We were just talking about that balance, right? The balance between the incredible potential of open source AI and the responsibility that comes with it.
Yeah, navigating that balance is going to require a pretty multifaceted approach.
Yeah.
And from what we've seen, the open source community is already wrestling with these questions, looking
Right.
at technical solutions,
Yeah.
but also ways to kind of foster a shared sense of ethics. Right.
Exactly. And one area where we're seeing a lot of progress is in developing these more robust safety mechanisms.
So you're talking about building safeguards directly into the models themselves.
That's right. Imagine AI models that can actually detect and flag potentially harmful outputs, before they're even released,
What?
or systems that can identify and mitigate biases that are, baked into the training data itself.
So it's like having a built-in safety net.
Precisely. But it's not a one and done kind of thing. These mechanisms, they need to constantly be evolving, adapting as the technology itself advances. And as we, learn more about the potential risks, it's a continuous process, a really collaborative effort between developers, researchers, and the whole AI community.
It sounds like it'll take a village to keep these models safe
Yeah.
and make sure they're aligned with their values.
Absolutely. And alongside those technical solutions, there's also this growing understanding of how important it is to establish clear ethical guidelines for both the developers and the users of open source AI.
So it's not just about the code itself, it's about fostering a responsible culture around how it's actually used.
Exactly. We need to be having those open and honest conversations about the potential pitfalls of this technology, and we need to work together to develop best practices and frameworks for, responsible development and deployment.
It's almost like creating a Hippocratic oath for AI developers.
That's a great analogy. And it's not just about preventing harm, it's also about making sure that these powerful tools are actually being used to benefit society as a whole.
So it's about aligning AI development with our shared values and aspirations.
Precisely. And that brings us back to this idea of a shared sense of responsibility, right? The open source community thrives on collaboration and transparency. And that same spirit needs to be applied to how we address the ethical challenges of AI.
It's a collective effort, a shared journey, if you will, towards building a future where AI is really a force for good.
Well said. And as we embark on that journey, it's important to remember that we're not dealing with just abstract concepts. The decisions we make about AI today, they have real-world impacts on people's lives.
It's not just about the technology, it's about humanity.
Exactly. And that's why it's crucial to have these conversations, to really engage with different perspectives, and to ensure that the way we develop and use AI is guided by empathy, compassion, and a deep understanding of, the human condition.
It's a good reminder that we're not just building machines here, we're shaping the future of our world.
And that future holds incredible promise, but it also requires careful consideration and a commitment to building a future that benefits everyone. That's the message I really hope our listeners take away from this deep dive.
I couldn't agree more. To our listener, we've really explored the exciting world of open source AI today. From those groundbreaking capabilities of DeepSeek R1 to the broader implications of this whole transformative movement. We've dug into the technical details, but we've also delved into those ethical considerations, the potential downsides, and that collective responsibility we all share in shaping the future of this powerful technology.
This open source AI revolution, it's here. And it's not just about code and algorithms, it's about people. It's about values, and it's about building a future where AI empowers us to create a better world for everyone.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey.
The pleasure was all mine. It's been fantastic exploring these complex and fascinating topics with you. Until next time, keep asking those tough questions. Keep pushing those boundaries and keep diving deep.
And remember, the future of AI, it's in our hands.